Caption testing 1, 2, 3. Caption test 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Christina, could you talk real quick so we can check your captions?
Sure thing. Testing. Checking the captions in Zoom. 1, 2, 3.
And
Not seeing
Thank
any
you,
words.
it's all working.
And Adam, if you can hear me, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Give me do me a favor. I need a couple of pictures of the touch panel to your right there to send to the Howard S. Wright project team to give them some examples of what a current touch panel up there looks like.
I understand. Please be aware that this test is live on YouTube. Thank you.
Okay, I gotcha.
please call the roll.
Maps.
Here.
Rubio.
Here.
Ryan.
Here.
Gonzalez.
Here, thank
Wheeler.
you. Oh, jumped the gun. I knew the answer. Do you want to say it again?
Wheeler.
Thank you. Now we'll hear from legal counsel on the rules of order and decorum.
Okay. Welcome to the Portland City Council. To testify before council in person or virtually, you must sign up in advance on the council agenda at www.portland.gov/council/agenda. Information on engaging with the council can be found on the council clerk's webpage. Individuals may testify for 3 minutes unless the presiding officer states otherwise. Your microphone will be muted when your time is over. The presiding officer preserves order. Disruptive conduct such as shouting, refusing to conclude your testimony when your time is up, or interrupting others' testimony or council deliberations will not be allowed. If you cause a disruption, a warning will be given. Further disruption will result in ejection from the meeting. Anyone who fails to leave once ejected will be subject to arrest for trespass. Additionally, council may take a short recess and reconvene virtually. Your testimony should address the matter being considered. When testifying, state your name for the record. Your address is not necessary. If you're a lobbyist, identify the organization you represent. Virtual testifiers should unmute themselves when the council clerk calls your name. Thank you.
First, let's hear item 888, please.
Amend graffiti materials and sales code to allow for misdemeanor penalties resulting from graffiti application using rights of way.
Colleagues, this item is being referred back to my office. So for now, we'll move on to our next time certain item report. Keelan, let's please hear item 889.
Report on homelessness response system ordinance milestones.
As staff's coming up in the mayor's absence, I'll offer some introductory comments. In the July 3rd ordinance approving the continuation of the IGA, or more specifically a new IGA, this council specified that it would reconvene by October 15th, 2024 to receive a progress report from the city administrator on the homeless response action plan. Last week, City Administrator Jordan reported to a joint meeting of the City Council and Multnomah County Commission. The purpose of today's presentation is to allow the administrative team to complete the report and create space for this council to discuss whether or not to continue with the IGA, its milestones, and the report itself. As Mr. Jordan communicated to offices on October 11th, following discussion under the July 3rd ordinance, any member of City Council believes that the contract milestones have not been adequately met may direct the city attorney to prepare an ordinance terminating the IGA. With that, I will turn it over to the presenters. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Commissioner. For the record, my name is Mike Jordan. I'm the interim city administrator for the city of Portland. Thank you for having us today, and thank you, commissioners, for the time this afternoon. I am going to very quickly just frame where we are, and Commissioner Gonzalez, I think, did a pretty good job already. So we're not going to go through a significant amount of preliminaries. What we'd like to do is actually get to the list of issues that were in the July 3rd ordinance and give you an update on all of those. So next slide, please. So as the commissioner mentioned, last week we gave a report. It was a joint report for a joint session, and so we covered a lot of ground besides just what was in the in the ordinance that you passed. And so today we're gonna do that. Next slide. Just to remind the commission or the council, there are 4 kind of high-level outcomes that are actually in the IGA. We did an update on those last week. I'm not going to do that again, but just wanted to remind you for context what's in there. Next slide. And then last week, we did give you an update on the action items. Again, not going to rehash that, but just for context, we did that last week, and we have a number of action items that are in the plan that we're working under. But today, we're going to restrict our comments to the milestones that were in the ordinance. And with me today is Skylar Brocker-Knapp, and she's going to actually go through the milestones one by one and give you a status, and then we'd entertain your questions and your discussion. Skylar?
Thanks, Mike. Next slide, please. For the record, Skylar Brocker-Knapp, Director of Portland Solutions. Next slide, please, Keelan. Thank you. I'm going to quickly just go through the milestones. I want to leave a majority of time for discussion and questions, but just to remind you of the 12 milestones that were passed as part of the city ordinance. The first being, you will see on your screen, I'm not going to read every one verbatim, but was a publicly accessible performance dashboard that shows quarterly updates and progress towards the HRAP outcomes. This is complete and on county website. Next slide, please. Milestone 2 was to have the Joint Office of Homeless Services launch a shelter availability app and report access and appropriate placement spots when available to be tracked in real time. This is That pilot has started. They're actually piloting it with the Street Services Coordination Center, the city outreach team, and so we're really excited about working with them and tweaking kind of different aspects of that before it would go live to kind of the larger outreach community. I got an update this morning, yesterday, that team met with the Joint Office Data team and tweaked some more aspects of that app, so it's in active progress right now. Next slide, please. The Homelessness Response System Steering and Oversight Committee will approve a publicly accessible budget dashboard. That is currently on the county's website. It's available for anyone to view and has a lot of really specific data as to different program offers and money that's going to different organizations. So if you have the time and are interested, you can dig really deeply into kind of their budgeting process. Next slide, please. Milestone 4 was that the Joint Office will provide a detailed plan, including costs and locations of the 555 beds of additional adult shelter that was planned to open by December of 2024. This is complete. This is the community sheltering strategy that I know a couple commissioners were able to participate in and provide feedback. Our team, our shelter services team at the city, has worked really closely with the Joint Office on this plan. We provided some details on the last week's meeting. I'm happy to go into those charts. We have them in the appendices of this presentation. We also have Brandy Westerman, who runs our sheltering services, actually here to answer any questions you have about those specific shelters that are kind of coming online. I'll just recap quickly. We did expand the city's shelter services by 132 units recently at the Multnomah Safe Rest Village and the Reedway Safe Rest Village. And then we'll have a North Portland location with 160 units coming online soon. So next slide, please. Milestone 5 was the Joint Office of Homeless Services launching a pilot to secure 200 block leasing and primary leased units to support rapid rehousing placement. Director Field of the Joint Office gave an overview last week on this, so I'm not going to dive into details, but I will just say there is a current solicitation in process. They're looking at potentially creating kind of a pilot version of this with different providers who would be interested. This is something that the city and the county haven't really done much of, and so it's really, we need to get providers to work with us to see what's possible, how they could get engaged, how they could kind of learn how that process works. They're going to do that through that solicitation. And then also they're concurrently looking at opportunities for the next fiscal year, 25-26. And so that'll be part of that budgeting process as well. Next slide, please. Milestone 6 was Multnomah County completing an analysis of supportive housing providers and developing a 6-month plan to bill for Medicaid-eligible services. I am happy to answer any questions about this. Medicaid can get complicated really quickly, but basically both the Implementation Committee and the Steering and Oversight Committee agreed to move this item to the spring because, I think it's April, because of a couple of pieces of information that are critical to this process. So one is the 1115 Medicaid waiver, so that's for that 6 months of housing. That's going to be launched in November. HealthShare is really leading that work, and they're going to have some learnings about the structure and infrastructure for billing Medicaid and kind of the reimbursable process for those nonprofits and those providers, and they can kind of piggyback basically off of that work in order to create and bill for some of the supportive housing services work. Just for context, this is something that is done in California, but Central City Concern also does some of this, but they bill for a lot of their own Medicaid services. So we're working with Central City Concern, with HealthShare, with former OHA director Bruce Goldberg and other kind of stakeholders in the area who have a lot of knowledge about these processes to kind of develop that infrastructure, not only for the 1115 waiver, but for street medicine reimbursement, for CHAT and PSR, as well as Project Respond and kind of some other street medicine work that CCC is doing. And then we want to piggyback off of that for the supportive housing services that would happen kind of in affordable housing units. So happy to dive in, but it's a lot. So if you want to get into substance later, I'm happy to answer questions. Milestone 7, please. Thank you. This is the Steering and Oversight Committee expanding the committee to include one business sector representative and one behavioral health expert who is not a current service provider and an individual taxpayer who currently pays supportive housing services tax and doesn't live in Portland. So council's going to vote on the recommendations from the mayor on the 30th of this month. He was conferring with the chair's office, I believe, last Friday, and I believe with Commissioner Ryan as well. And so that kind of is in process, and then he'll make that recommendation, and then everyone will vote on those 2 appointments on the 30th. Milestone 8, please. Thank you. This is the Steering and Oversight Committee approving a policy that governs the distribution of tents and tarps by Multnomah County and its service providers within the city of Portland. I think we got a more detailed kind of overview of these proposals last week from Director Field, but I'll just quickly say the Joint Office released a draft policy and incorporated some of Commissioner Gonzalez's proposals from his proposal into theirs, but not all, and it still needs to be discussed at the Steering and Oversight Committee. So I think that's currently where it stands, is it still needs to be discussed with that group, provide further discussion, debate, and maybe finalize a recommendation for different bodies, so the City of Portland and Multnomah County. That, I think, will take place probably at the next Steering and Oversight Committee meeting, but Ryan Dybert would know better than I do, who directs the homeless response system, and I think he is here today. So if you have questions kind of about the timing on that meeting, I believe it's mid-November, if I remember correctly. Next slide, please. Milestone 9, the Steering and Oversight Committee will approve a policy that governs the distribution of syringes, drug kits, and other harm reduction tools by Multnomah County and its service providers within the City of Portland. So Multnomah County shared its current policy on this. I think this is an opportunity for more discussion within the Steering and Oversight Committee, similar to the last slide. That's something that could be brought up in kind of that discussion area. The mayor and Commissioner Gonzalez sit on that committee and would be able to kind of discuss that in more detail with that group and make a recommendation going forward. Next slide, please. Milestone 10, the Joint Office of Homeless Services will finalize an outreach and engagement strategy work group and steering committee. The City of Portland currently sits on both of those groups. That has been rolled out in the last month, I think, month and a half. It's similar to the community sheltering strategy that we've previously talked about, and that work includes a lot of providers, different governments. Gresham and Wood Village, I think, are also represented on the steering committee, as well as some different stakeholders. And HMA, the consultants that did and kind of led the community sheltering strategy, are also leading the strategy. So it's very similar in its makeup. And that work will be finalized in the spring based on kind of all the information they gather and the recommendations that the consultants make. Next slide, please. Milestone 11 was the Steering and Oversight Committee providing a clear delineation of roles and responsibilities of the city and the county. We discussed this last week as well. Some of these are obviously outlined in the city and county charters, as well as the Homelessness Response System, IGA. However, I just want to note that I think, and this is a little more editorial, but just the reality on the ground means that we're pretty integrated and it's a little messy. And I think that's something commissioners are seeing and speaking to and voicing. And I think it is easier to put on paper than it is to see kind of on the ground. So I do think there is some gray areas and messiness, and it is not always crystal clear. Mike can speak to this much more eloquently than I can in the new form of government and kind of how we see this process going forward, but also happy to answer questions on just what you see as our delineation, or I can tell you kind of the day-to-day work, what I see as a delineation of roles and responsibilities. Next slide, please. Milestone 12 was the Steering and Oversight Committee determining an agreed upon number of housing vouchers to be set aside for residents who are housed in a TAS or SRV site. Some context here, housing vouchers usually pertain to very specific long-term rent assistance. So when we say rental assistance in general, that's usually the term we like to use. That's just more any dollars that would go towards rental assistance in general. So that's really what we're looking for here is some people will require a longer-term subsidy, a true voucher, or a love voucher, sometimes they're called. So some folks will require, some folks will, thanks Mike, some folks will require that. Other folks might just need a short-term subsidy. So, first and last month's rent, 3 months of rent, et cetera, or just need to pay some back fees. They weren't able to pay rent last month and they just need help. So we're looking for some rental assistance dollars, obviously, for our different shelter sites. Council put that forward in one of the milestones. And what we've done, thank you, so far is participate with the Joint Office in kind of their current structure from the budget this year, which would be a $2 million solicitation for the adult shelter system. As Anna Plum, the Deputy Director of the Joint Office, said last week, that's not going to be sufficient for the need at all. Joint Office is aware of that, and we are working together to figure out other opportunities. So we're getting as creative as possible. We're looking at federal grants, we're looking at state opportunities, we're looking at both of our budgets, we're looking at flexible funds, and trying to see what might be the most important and an avenue that would actually allow us to house the most people. So some folks will really need those rental assistance dollars, and some folks will need workforce development and other opportunities and avenues for progress kind of from the shelter for their next best step. So that really involves a lot of different work. Happy to speak more in depth about just the different avenues that we're taking, but some of those are definitely lobbying at the state and federal, regional levels, and then working kind of within our own budgets as well. Okay, I think I'm done.
Take a drink. I think that's what we had planned to present today. You may have lots of questions, don't know, but this time is really reserved for your discussion and how the council wishes to move forward.
Okay, well, before we commence with council discussion, Keelan, do we have any public testimony?
We have 6 people signed up.
Why don't we go ahead and have them come up and we'll bring you back.
First up is John DiLorenzo.
Welcome, John.
Good afternoon, Council President and members of the City Council. I'm John DiLorenzo, the attorney who represented the plaintiffs in Tozer versus the City of Portland case, which culminated in our ADA sidewalk settlement. As you know, the city has honored that settlement insofar as it has devoted substantial sums of money to remove tent and tarp encampments from city sidewalks, thereby allowing persons with disabilities to freely use our sidewalk system. The plaintiffs' efforts and yours have greatly enhanced the daily lives of these contributing members of our community. Unfortunately, tent and tarp distribution policies of the Joint Office have hampered your efforts because for every 2 tents you have removed, the county has replaced 1 new tent on our sidewalks and in our neighborhoods. Last July, by a vote of 3-2, you agreed to keep the IGA alive, based in part on County Chair Peterson's promise to temporarily suspend tent and tarp purchases and your expectation that the Joint Office would attain certain milestones by October 15th. One of these milestones, Milestone 8, was a tent and tarp distribution policy which was expected to somewhat comport with the city's assurances made in the ADA settlement. Later, Commissioner Gonzalez published a proposal showing what the city negotiating team expected in such a policy. Instead of engaging in a public discussion and a collaborative process, the county chair reneged on her promise to suspend tent and tarp purchases and published a formal policy embracing tent and tarp distribution as a strategy to deal with homelessness. That policy, placed in juxtaposition with your suggestion, places these policies once again like 2 ships passing in the night. The county chair's actions also shows that notwithstanding talk of collaboration, that she and the Joint Office intend no such thing. It is their way or the highway. In my view, the most efficacious strategies addressing visible homelessness so far have involved expanding shelter services due to the efforts of the city team, tiny house villages thanks to Commissioner Ryan, curtailing tent and tarp distribution by the Fire Bureau thanks to Commissioner Gonzalez, the ADA settlement thanks in large part to Mayor Wheeler and all of you. These practical strategies have been the city's ideas and have been wholly financed by the city, not the county. The conditions and milestones you proposed were real. The Joint Office has ignored them. There is no reason to continue to devote $40 million of city funds each year to their policies which promote ideology over pragmatism. Commissioner Mapps proposed a great idea. He said, why not search for commonality in homeless response and just build separate IGAs around those rather than funding another bureaucracy over which the city has no control. It is time to withdraw from office. You can use the money much more effectively
Thank you,
on
John.
your own.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Keith Martin. Let me, it looks like they may have joined online. Keith, you're muted. Okay, we'll move on to the next person. Tiana Tozer.
Long time no see. Tiana Tozer, lead plaintiff in the ADA lawsuit against the city of Portland. Commissioners, today I want to tell you the story of how I ended up fostering 2 cats. I call it a tale of 2 kitties. Isabel and Mandy, silly names for cats, I renamed them Cash and Carrie. This spring, on March 21st, Mark Barnhill died. Mark Barnhill was one of my fellow plaintiffs in the ADA lawsuit. You'll remember him for never being on topic and his dogged determination to get the elevators fixed, the ones near the pedestrian bridge connecting Union Station to the apartment complexes on Nadeau Parkway. Mark was a former veteran, had previously experienced homelessness, lived on Social Security, and like a lot of people with disabilities, was very isolated. People with disabilities are the most disadvantaged minority in the US and around the world. Here in the States, we experience 70% unemployment. Only approximately 16% of us obtain a post-secondary degree, and 92% of us do not have significant others. People with disabilities are one of the least included minorities in our communities. Mark died of cancer, and I, who was only an acquaintance, ended up with his cats, while another woman who had only known him a couple of years had his power of attorney. It took 2 months to locate any family, but they hadn't been in contact for years. Mark died with nothing, there was nothing to inherit, and no one to deal with his death. This is not an uncommon situation for people with disabilities. The majority of plaintiffs in the ADA lawsuit were on public assistance and not employed. I'm not telling you this to garner sympathy. I tell you this because I want you, and mainly all the homeless advocates who claim that the plaintiffs are privileged, to understand just how close to the edge the majority of Portlanders with disabilities live, of which there are more than 59,000, the largest minority in Portland. The issue with the sidewalks being blocked only increases isolation for people with disabilities. That being said, I'm here today to tell you that you are not meeting the terms of our negotiated settlement because of the county's actions. So the city passed a resolution giving the county until October 15th to attain certain milestones as a condition of renewing the Joint Office Intergovernmental Agreement. The county virtually ignored one of the milestones and adopted a tent and tarp policy that looks nothing like that of the cities. The county has therefore failed to attain the milestones. So I feel like the county staff and the Joint Office staff are playing the city and will continue to do so. I am tired of JVP totally throwing her 59,000 constituents with disabilities under the bus and not caring about us and our lives. It is time to sever the relationship and spend the city's money more wisely, not just for people with disabilities, but for all your citizens. And I think I may come back with a proposal to name that elevator Barnhill's Folly on behalf of Mark. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Let's try Keith Martin again. Keith, would you like to testify? If you're on the phone, you can press *6 to unmute. Okay, let's move on to Sharon Myron. Tiffany Graven. Tiffany, you're muted.
Tiffany, you want to try the *6?
We'll come back to Tiffany. Sarah Fisher.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, council members. I'm Sarah Fisher, street chaplain and Episcopal priest. I'm a political outsider and relatively new to this particular conversation. I do not want tents and tarps on the sidewalks any more than anybody else. And the people that I support on the streets of East Portland certainly do not want to sleep in them. I'm here for those people who will be most impacted if the IGA is abandoned, people who are rarely given an opportunity to make their voices heard. Vulnerable Portlanders do not need to have desperately needed services interrupted, postponed, or thrown into disarray because current leadership cannot agree. In less than 3 weeks, the people of Portland will elect a new mayor and a new city council, many of whom have spent many months studying this issue and preparing to improve the city-county infrastructure. I hate to sound cynical, and I hope it isn't true, but it seems that to disrupt this infrastructure now without a subsequent service delivery plan in place is nothing more than political theater and is disrespectful to our democratic process. Our city has repeatedly been accused of dysfunction and poor planning. Let's not prove those naysayers right. I ask you to give the IGA more time and to give it to the leaders who will be freely and fairly elected before we know it.
Thank you.
And, we'll go back. Sharon Myron.
Greetings. My name is Sharon Myron. I am a Multnomah County Commissioner, and I am here to speak to the IGA, and I'm going to disagree vehemently with my dear friend Sarah Fisher because for a number of reasons. And the first thing I would say is services will absolutely not be abandoned if this IGA is decided, if the city withdraws from the IGA. They will all continue. I think that this is a scare tactic that is being used to suggest in many ways that that things will fall apart if you withdraw from the IGA. Quite the contrary is true. It will actually allow the city to enter into agreements for the things that it wants to do and should be doing. You have proven success in actually getting things done, and the committees will continue, the contracts continue, the services will continue, and we'll figure out, as happens when the IGA lapsed during the time we were working on this, things didn't fall apart, and we were warned that would happen. So things will be okay. And we are mostly here today because the joint office had failed when they, and that was due to poor leadership, when they tried the latest in a series of efforts over decades to enter into agreements that have each resulted in failure worse than the last. This is the latest example. It is rebranded now as Homeless Response Action Plan, HRAP. I have come to call it, pardon my language, I call it HCRAP at this point, because the city, don't want to go into the history. I hope you will grant me a minute of grace to cover for my response to Ms.
We may ask some follow-up questions. So
Okay,
that's good.
that would be great. So when this agreement was first entered into, it was already, we could tell it wasn't going to hold accountability. The measures, the so-called deliverables, were not going to be real numbers. And as Commissioner Ryan stated at the report on the, toward the milestones that this city council put forward in the ordinance, the milestones weren't met. There is no North Star here, and the numbers are in a vacuum taken out of context. They do not measure what is really happening in our community. And
Commissioner Myron,
Yeah.
I've got to stop you on your initial presentation.
Yes.
Could you just articulate where you feel we are in terms of the milestones that the city's articulating?
we have not met any of them. The county says that it has checked a number of boxes that say we will make progress, and it's promising to do the things that it had said it would do before and keep saying. 2 key areas, I'll just say one for time because I brought visuals. The most important thing in making an agreement around homelessness, a homelessness response system, is understanding the baseline roles and responsibilities of each party to that agreement. I have asked for the county, to provide what are these basic roles and responsibilities for months, and they have not provided. You put that forward in your ordinance, the basic lowest hanging fruit, they have not been able to provide it. And so there are only 2 reasons for that. One is either the leadership of this doesn't understand what the roles and responsibilities are, or they understand and recognize that the system is so chaotic, dysfunctional, and fragmented that they just don't want to admit that's what the system is, and they're adding more bureaucracy. I therefore took it on myself to outline it myself since they weren't doing it. And I did my little craft project, and I have a before and after HRS. And this is why.
Dr. Myron,
and I'll
maybe you
pass
can
them
send that
around
out
you.
to us
Yep.
for consumption afterwards. I believe Commissioner Maps had a question for
Yeah.
you.
Dr. Myron, always a pleasure to see you. Thanks for coming in person today. You touched on your skepticism of the joint office achieving, I believe, milestone 11, which is clearly delineating roles and responsibilities for the city and the county in the houselessness space. We've heard from city staff today that, well, we kind of don't need to do that because these roles and responsibilities are delineated in the city and county charters. Do you have any reaction to that? I'll just give a heads
Yes.
up. I'm gonna ask our staff to explain that. I was the one who kind of got milestone 11 into the ordinance, and this is one of the reasons why I asked for this is, I used to be the commissioner in charge of PBOT, and I would make the argument that over the last several years, PBOT has been one of the most effective houselessness outreach crews and teams in the entire city, and that's just because of the nature of the work. We're actually out there in the real world interacting with the public. Also cost us just millions of dollars that we frankly don't have. I'm proud of our PBOT team for doing this work, although it's not clear to me why PBOT is frankly bankrupting itself when I kind of look across the river at our friends at the county who frankly have tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars of unspent money, which is specifically supposed to be spent on the houseless community. So can you give me a response or your thoughts on whether or not I could just look at our charters and find the answer to what the city and the county should be doing in the houselessness space? Because I'm not sure where in the charter it says PBOT should be our lead outreach workers on houselessness issues.
Thank you so much for that question, Commissioner Maps. Thank you, and Commissioner Ryan for recognizing this need for accountability and just basic understanding of roles and functions. And I think that is frankly a shameful and embarrassing answer to the question of roles and responsibilities. Go find it in the charter. Are you kidding me? I mean, sorry, I wasn't here. I was driving in traffic, the city that works. but I was trying to get here, and so I'm sorry I missed that presentation, but that is frankly offensive. First of all, because I do not believe those roles and responsibilities are laid out in charter, and it's not personal, it's just, who would answer that to this body, the city council, and say it's in charter? If it's in charter, then it would be easy to just pick it out and outline it. But charter is not the real world. And as you point out, Commissioner Maps, we are serving people in the real world, and the services come from, in what I will share with all of you, you can see even from afar, it's ridiculous, but how the city, whether it's parks, whether it is, the, I don't know, Bureau of Emergency Management, trash pickup, all of this ties into homelessness, and the charter, forgive me for saying, but the charter goes nowhere near that. And the HRAP itself goes nowhere near real people and people with lived experience and people doing the work and putting it together. So no, give us, you can have mine, and until they correct it, then I think that this is the one that should stand, because at least I took the time to put it together.
Thank you very much. I got one more question, and then I'll lower my hand. I guess a week ago, we came together, city council, county commissioners, to review this progress report. And frankly, I came away from that wondering if the city and the county are trying to solve for two different problems. So for example, by the time we got to the very end of that presentation, we saw, I think it was Julia Bremer Edwards kind of point out that we don't, in our current system, even with all the reforms we put into place, there is no discussion of reducing the absolute number of people who sleep on the streets. On the other hand, I know my colleagues on this council very well, and I know all the staff in the room, and a whole lot of what we do every day is to respond to the realities that we find out on the streets. I think when I listen to between the lines, it seems to me like the county is not in the business of necessarily moving people from the streets into shelter, but rather maybe preventing people from falling into houselessness in the first place, which is an important mission, that's for sure. But I'll tell you, I don't think anyone who sits in these chairs is ever going to be viewed as a success until we systematically reduce the absolute number of people who sleep on our streets every night. And frankly, even despite this agreement, or I think actually because of this agreement, which makes no reference to the actual number of people who are on our streets every day, I'm not sure that it's possible to reconcile this, because I think we're playing two fundamentally different games. Is that right, or am I missing something?
That is, so first of all, you're absolutely correct. There's what we need to measure to see if we are succeeding or failing in reducing homelessness. There's one number we need to measure: the net number of people living on our streets and dying on our streets. I think we should measure as well. If the number is going up, we're failing. If the number is going down, we're succeeding. The county not only has said that it does not have the net number of people living on our street.
Oh my God. Did we make it?
Not quite, Kevin.
Keith,
Keith,
we'll
sorry,
come back to you, Keith. Go ahead, Dr. Monk.
Hi, Keith. We don't only not measure the net number of people living on our street. The head of our Joint Office of Homeless Services has specifically said there is no intention to measure that number dynamically over time. And the reason that he gave during our budget sessions at the county when I asked was because it's out of our control what happens in terms of inflow. We're measuring inflow and outflow, and that's what we get to the number of people on the streets. So what concerns me there is not only that we're saying these things are beyond our control, we can't measure them, but what you just said is preventing homelessness is a core responsibility of the county, and indeed it is. And we have the Joint Office of Homeless Services basically saying that's stemming inflow prevention, and saying point blank, that is not a role of the Joint Office of Homeless Services at the county. And so amongst all of these things, it does not give me confidence, and it should not give you confidence that we are looking at what really matters. We are not holding accountability, and we are not serving either our housed neighbors or those living unhoused who we need to figure out, and there are straightforward ways of doing it, figure out how to get them the services they need, get them housed, and on a path, if they have mental illness or addiction, on a meaningful path to recovery.
Thank you. Let me share this observation with you. You work on the other side of the river, and I don't know how often you look at our dashboards. But, you know, on our city side, we get, maybe once a year, we get a report from the county that gives us a rough number of the folks who sleep on our streets, or the number of folks who sleep on our streets. Getting that number just once a year is not particularly helpful. On the other hand, we also have our impact reduction team, which are basically the folks who take our calls when people come to report tents on our streets. And every week they update a dashboard that shows the number of calls that came in every week about camps and the number of unique camps that get reported. I'll tell you, and I look at this number closely and have during my entire time on council. Right now, colleagues, we're averaging about 700 unique camps reported in Portland, which is shocking. And I will also tell you, if you look at trends in that dashboard for the number of unique camps that get reported, they have increased, frankly, practically every month since we've been on this council. If we go back a year, we probably had about 200 fewer camps than we have today. And if we go back a year before that, we see that same dynamic, which does raise to me the question that our failure to focus in on our North Star, which is to reduce the absolute number of tents on our streets, is resulting in the exact opposite outcome that we want. Our work will never be done in the houselessness space until we focus in on that goal. And it's not just, you know, the folks in our impact reduction team who need to deal with this. We've all had unique bureaus. I'll tell you, responding to our houselessness crisis is a huge issue for PBOT. It's a huge issue for water. It's a huge issue for BES. I know it's a huge issue for Parks. I know it's a huge issue for fire. I know it's a huge issue in the housing space too. Until we focus and solve for this problem, we are never going to achieve our work. And I would argue and point to the nature of this IGA and the fact that it is not attempting to solve the problem that we are charged with solving is a fundamental flaw. And I hope that we have the courage to address that flaw and move the city forward. Thank you.
Can I just respond to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that you are spot on. And that is what the Built for Zero program that Commissioner Ryan introduced me to years ago, and then we brought it to the Home for Everyone board, got it adopted. Years later, we have not moved one iota, not 1 inch in achieving Built for Zero. And the whole goal is you create a by name list proactively of all the people living outside, identify their needs so we can invest our resources meaningfully in what's actually needed, have teams that follow them, that get them the services they need, help them move along, and then they're removed from the list when they are stably housed. We have no aspect of any of that. And so, but we act like we do in this agreement. We need to do real Built for Zero, and then we'll see real solutions. The county, as you said, Joint Office alone has a $395 million budget for homelessness, and things are worsening. That should give us pause. And finally, you mentioned, Commissioner Mapps, that we have sort of maybe two different problems between the city and county. I see it as we have, what is the word? We're sharing different aspects of the same problem.
Absolutely.
That's why it's so important to know what we do and what our roles and responsibilities are. So we have that North Star and are working together collaboratively, optimally, to address the issue.
Well,
Thank you so much. Oh, did you have?
Well, before you go, I just want to say I really appreciate this dialogue. And one of the things, while I am skeptical of both the results and even the theory behind the joint office, I also want to be clear that the city and the county do need to work together. I think you're absolutely
Yes.
right that we are touching the same problem, but from different angles. You know, if we're going to solve this problem, we do have to work together. For the life of me, I can't understand why we can't spell out our work in an IGA, guys. We will do this literally hundreds of times a year, and we do it dozens of times a year with the county. I mean, we do it with vector control, we do it with bridges. I don't understand why we don't also just have clear roles and responsibility and a clear discussion of cash flows. Or actually, the only thing that is clear in this is the cash flows. The cash flows go from the city to the county. I wish that we could also just clearly define what our responsibilities are too. Thank you very much. I appreciate my colleagues' patience.
Did you have a question for?
Hello, Commissioner Myron. I'm so glad you're here. Thanks.
Thank you.
I was reflecting a lot lately on what voters adopted, what voters passed. It was in the primary of 2020. And that became the revenue that we collect in the SHS fund, correct?
Correct.
And when I talk to neighbors, when I talk to people out on the streets to reminisce on what they thought they voted on, I always keep hearing over and over again, shelter with services. Is that your recollection?
That is absolutely my recollection. It is the services that are so needed desperately for mental health and addiction in particular to support people in the housing and shelters. Get them off the street so they're not dying there.
Okay, so thank you. I mean, I'm just,
Yes.
sometimes when we're in these rooms, we have to keep asking ourselves.
Like a whole different reality.
Yeah, about the reality. And currently the way, this is for people, you know, that are trying to track this, those revenues go, the Metro is the steward of those funds, correct?
Correct.
And then they're dispersed where?
To the 3 counties,
The 3 counties?
according to a formula, yeah.
Yet there's nothing in the charter that says it couldn't go directly to municipalities that are also doing the said focus of that ballot measure, which was shelter with services?
I don't know. I don't believe there's anything that excludes that. But even if it were excluded, the counties, and if we were in true collaboration and partnership, which I feel literally with every single one of you, if we were actually, our people were working together in the way we could, this county should be giving either by formula or depending on what services, we should be giving the city a significant portion of that. And I can't believe that we don't. And in fact, extract money from you to do what should be our job.
Yeah. So my experience when the mayor had me be the dotted line to the county's office for homeless services, when we brought up early on after that celebratory victory to get those services, really much needed, because before that the city was a primary donor to the county to do homeless work, correct?
Correct.
So now we have this largesse revenue that comes in. And I'll never forget, we would ask questions on how we can use this for shelter with services. And what was your experience with that? I'm trying to see if I was there, and did you have a similar experience?
I had a similar experience. How do we save lives of people living outside and get them indoors and get them the actual services they need? And people said, how dare you even suggest that?
So, because you've been over there now for 8 years, what is it about the Housing First agenda plan that rejects shelter with services?
This would go way beyond, but I think there is a misconception about Housing First from both sides of Housing First. Housing First refers to getting people housed with matching them to the services they actually need to, probably in a sort of phased approach, because many people, we see it, I do street medicine, I see people on the streets, could not go into an apartment, even if they had all the services in the world, nor did they want to necessarily. What we need to do is glom onto people, establish meaningful relationships, support them through the system when they get housing, provide the profound level of services that some people need to keep them housed. It's about sustaining and services. So very few providers in the county do real housing first. It's really, really expensive, which is why we need so much money, and said we'd do it with the supportive housing services measure. So, and in shelter, we need those same services. It's part of a continuum that gets people what they need. And so it's very complicated. We don't understand it right from either side, and I've looked at the studies cited. There aren't good studies except for the ones that say to work. It's very specific, it's really expensive, and if you do it exactly the right way, it works. We don't do it the right way.
And so because we were rejected at those tables, the Metro County's tables to do shelter with services,
yes,
we were fortunate then that we had a revenue stream that came from the ARPA funds from the federal government, and we launched the Safe
yes.
West Village program, then the task sites as well, and the city took that upon ourselves. But now that they're getting some promising results, and again, you're over there in more conversations than I am, is there now an understanding that because we're seeing some promising proof points that we will be able to finally leverage what the voters approved in 2020 for shelter with services that would go then directly to the said projects that they thought they voted yes on?
I can only hope, because if we don't start using that money effectively, I worry about re-upping.
Yeah, I just wanted to have some dialogue about this because sometimes it feels like we're spinning in circles about the fear of where we get the resources for one of the few things that we have built that's actually getting some results. And how could we not do that when the voters and those paying the tax asked for shelter for services? And that was the main selling point when that went onto the ballot, correct?
For me, it was services wherever people are that is safer, with the goal to get people into
Keep them where they are so they would have a on-ramp.
Trajectory, an on-ramp, that's the word, yeah.
So we were missing in our continuum that on-ramp.
We're missing a whole continuum is what we're missing. I mean, we just kind of like.
I shouldn't have got you started on it. Anyway,
don't
thanks.
get me started.
No, because you and I were in those same meetings, and sometimes it feels like it was a long time ago, and it really wasn't. And so I just wanted to make sure that I was recollecting all that adequately.
I just want to thank you personally, Commissioner Ryan, for pushing through and making the Safe Rest Villages happen when everyone said, how dare you? And they have been one of the few things that have provided the real support. And then the task sites, when everyone said, how dare you? The city has stepped up and filled in the gaps where frankly, the county wasn't acting, and I'm just very grateful.
Thank you so much. And it's great to be reminded that Metro is the steward of those investments from the taxpayers to invest in such services that are getting results. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
We'll go back to, did we lose him?
Well, we have Tiffany Graven
Okay, we can
online.
do your hand's still.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tiffany Graven, and I apologize. My grandson might be fussing in the background. I had a paper all filled out, but then after listening to everybody, I wanted just to highlight some of the things as somebody with lived experience and who is on the verge of perhaps becoming homeless again with my daughter. I have realized that there are a lot of discrepancies in the research I do with all the programs concerning, like, for instance, Economic Opportunity Program, Regional Long-Term Rent Assistance, to name a couple. I read one thing, and then when I attempt to try to request these support services that it states that I qualify for, I am then dismissed, and a criteria is told to me is different than what is stated. And that's just one issue. Another is rent assistance for eviction. I feel like it's great for emergencies, but I feel that that money could go to so many more people if we help people at the 10-day notice or a notice prior, before they get the eviction notice, because the eviction notice, that threat in itself can lead people to into fight or flight response, and then cognitive dissonance because they're trying to get resources. They're, experiencing the same things I am, and then you get pushed into needing to cope, and that sometimes can lead to unhealthy coping mechanisms like substance use and mental health issues. Personally, I participate in my own self-directed outreach. I don't get paid. I'm trying to find a job. I haven't been able to. I utilized all the services that are available with SNAP and other. Tried to start childcare business, and I was met with barriers with that also. But I have moved 3 dozen homeless individuals out of homelessness using the same pathway that I used to get out. And that was health-related services. And so I help them. I help with enrolling them in Oregon One if they haven't. I help them find a provider. And I just want to see if there's any way to get funding. So maybe I could have a job doing it and continue doing it. Thank you.
Thanks so much for your testimony.
Let's try Keith Martin. Keith, are you there?
I am here. Thank you. Do I go ahead now?
Go ahead.
Okay, counselors, thank you very much. I'm sorry I had some trouble at this end. I don't have too much to add here. I live in a condo downtown, and I'm on a mobility scooter, and whenever there's a tent on the street, it just pushes me into Market Street, into traffic. And I just want to say that there are lots of tents, and it's a lot of a problem. And I appreciate everything you have to do here, and I hope we don't keep giving out tents and tarps. That's really it.
Thank you, Keith.
That completes testimony.
Okay, why don't we have staff come back up? And then colleagues, for efficiency, we'd like to create some space to first discuss the report. Following discussion of the report and any questions you may have, we can then discuss milestones and our current IGA engaged support for it. Does anyone have questions or comments for staff related to the report first?
Would milestones be considered part of the report?
I think so, yes.
Your framing? Yeah. Great. Well, Commissioner, I have some, if any, unless someone. All right, great. So I tipped my hand a little bit on some of the things I am thinking about today. Let's go back to milestone 11. This is one I managed to get added to the ordinance or to the IGA. This was just a request to have clearly delineated roles and responsibilities. The status report I got back in part says, well, those roles and responsibilities are outlined in the city and county charters. And I'll tell you, can you tell me where it is in the city charter, for example? Since we've been here, I've been doing word searches through the city's charter on houselessness, homelessness, and I'm not seeing anything here. What should I be looking for in the city charter around that?
Yeah, happy to send it to you too, Commissioner. So I think when I mentioned just to give a little more context. So roles and responsibilities for each government are clearly outlined in the charters. If you're looking specifically for homelessness, that's going to be in an amendment, and I'm happy to send that related to kind of adult sheltering. And then we started the Joint Office of Homeless Services. So that was intended to kind of help facilitate that process so that the Joint Office could then take over adult sheltering. So it's a separate amendment specifically about homelessness, but I was speaking to roles and responsibilities in general are outlined in the charters. What I think is a little messier, frankly, and Commissioner Myron mentioned this, is kind of her outline, and I've talked through that with her. I think it's a really good analysis of kind of what it is, but it is really messy, and it is a lot of different pieces to that puzzle. So I'm happy to also walk through that at any point or kind of outline those specifics, but what's outlined in the charters are just the city and county responsibilities. Our work
governments, but maybe I should have been more clear when I added this milestone to the ordinance on the IGA between the city and the county for the joint office. I was hoping we would have clarity on what the city, frankly, was supposed to do in the context of the joint office, as opposed to
Yeah.
what the city does for the mayor and bonds and whatnot. So what I'm looking for here is, what is the city's lane in this space and what is the county's lane in this space? And you see that is defined
There's
in an amendment?
There's an amendment that kind of led to the joint office. So Amendment A, is it? I don't remember exactly what it's called, but I can send it to you. That outlines kind of the city's responsibility for the adult sheltering system and is kind of historically why we've paid for, like sent that money to the joint office. That was always intended for the adult sheltering strategy kind of that they had 8 years ago. And so that money now funds congregate adult shelters, basically, that the joint office contracts with. And historically, we were funding those kind of adult shelters, and then the county would fund the domestic violence, youth, family kind of shelters as well.
Commissioner Maps, may I interject here?
Sure.
It might be helpful for the city attorney's office just to clarify.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure I would have conceptualized the document you're referring to as an amendment of a charter. But I just want to be, I'm pretty sure I know what you're referring to, and just so we're all speaking
Sure,
the same
no,
language,
that would be
it
helpful.
might be helpful. Robert, I'm not sure if this is a question for you, but
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
or someone on your team, but the document, and you're talking about the very old document that describes
yes.
approach to shelter. Could you clarify what the nature of that document is?
Thank you for the record, Robert Taylor, City Attorney. I believe what Sky was referring to is what's called Resolution A. And it was a document passed decades ago now. And it was an effort by the city and county to try to identify what are the city's roles, what are the county's roles. And so in that document, it talks about city's going to do adult sheltering, county's going to do more of the social services, human services. That document, is old, doesn't go into all of the detail, and doesn't really address the situation we have on the streets now. But that is the document many, many years ago that tried to sort of broadly say city's going to do some things, county's going to do some other things.
Not just for precision, do you deem that an amendment of the charter, or is it essentially an IGA or a shared resolution of agreement?
Yeah, Resolution A, yeah.
So I don't want to be overly precise, but I just wanted to clarify that. Okay, so thank you, Robert. I'll turn it back to you, Commissioner Matt.
Commissioner, I might. The other part of the statement in the status line is the IGA itself.
Yeah.
And there's an appendix in the IGA which states the services that the city will have to continue to provide should we discontinue the IGA.
Yeah.
And so at least in the IGA itself, we at least defined the services that the city would need to continue to work on should we not have the IGA. So in my view, that delineates at least our responsibilities in the discussion we're having right now. Now, it's even more complex than that because there's a lot of things we're working on that aren't articulated in that appendix. And it is almost, and I'd defer to Sky on this, my impression, because I'm not the person doing this every day, is that it is almost a daily negotiation as to what the city is doing and what the county is doing to try and overcome issues on a daily basis on the street.
I'm going to give one more observation, I'm going to give it back to you. If we could just be very careful as to how we're describing the source of that clarification, because charter is given to us by the voters, that those are our mandates. Resolutions or IGAs are really the product of this body and this government. So the distinction is important where the source of the clarification is coming from. I'll turn it back over to you, Commissioner Matt.
Sure, and Commissioner Gonzalez, I appreciate your clarification because it does help articulate why I'm confused and a little bit frustrated here. The resolution, we're told the roles and responsibilities are in the charter. We learned it's not in the charter. It's in a resolution. And then we also hear, well, the roles and responsibilities are in the IGA, but what the IGA actually articulates is what happens if we don't have this agreement. So it's more, so we can define our roles and responsibilities by somehow peering into the negative space that surrounds this agreement. And all I want, is frankly to know who picks up the garbage, who goes out and offers the housing vouchers. If I know what lane the city is supposed to be in, I can focus in on optimizing that. But I can't optimize the system that we're doing now. And indeed, I don't think that the system we've set up right now is intended to solve the problems that, frankly, council is held accountable to, which is, frankly, reducing the absolute number of tents on the streets. So that is my concern. I do have another set of concerns, but I might create some space here for my colleagues to jump in before I get into milestone.
Sure. Other
12.
colleagues, is there other questions with respect to the milestones in the report we've heard this afternoon?
Hi. So I have a few. First of all, I continue to kind of think what I'm always missing when we have our joint sessions is for everyone just to go around the table and say, what is your North Star? Like, what does success really look like in general? I've been open about mine, so I'll try it again. It's to have someone go from being dependent on substance abuse, if you will, dependent on drugs and alcohol, dependent on government services, to the North Star being independent from addictions, recovered, and also in the workforce and living independently from government. That would be a really big net gain in terms of a prosperous city that we live in, and then those same people would be some of the best professionals to serve those who are suffering on our streets. So I just like to say that now and then because I'd like to live in government bodies that are focused and inspired by that vision. And I often am disappointed that we don't spend any time on that. So I always think of the metrics leading towards that. And it's hard to track that when I'm looking at that. That said, I do want to say that they've finally moved a bit, and so I did want to acknowledge that I did see some of that. But when I asked last week at the joint session about the only way inputs are worth looking at is if there's discipline throughout the provider network, which for the last 3 years I've tried to get that amendment in, and then I'd find out it got watered down or went away once I got over the county and I didn't realize that. So broken record. I would like to hear if the joint office in the contracts it does with all of their providers are finally asking for such discipline when they give such awards, so we can actually start to work with Built for Zero because we have real-time data and we're looking at actual outcomes and not just goals that don't have any net gains, if you will. So I don't know, maybe what's always missing is there's no one here representing the providers about how that's being a part of their system. But we all know the HMS data is compliance data that doesn't give us a lot to work with. And so we've been trying to improve this since Commissioner Myron and I passed that whatever that was, that amendment in that meeting about 4 years ago. So is there any sense of if we have any accountability towards those practices? I know that I was all over this with the Safe Rest Villages, and we had to build this we had to build it ourselves. And so I know that we'd love to work with Built for Zero to keep building that type of data integrity with the providers of the Safe Rest Villages and the task sites. So the city will continue to lead on this, but we'd sure like to know that we're all doing it together as a team holistically.
Yeah, I can say at least what I know to be true. And I think there's some folks maybe from the county. I don't know if anybody from the joint office specifically is here today. But if they'd like to answer in more depth.
Some people from the county here. Did the people from the joint office leave? Oh, there you are. Hey, Dan.
Commissioner Ryan, I might just ask you.
Am I on the wrong part of the agenda?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're still mostly wanted to make the first part of this related to the report we just heard. So if that question relates to the report we just heard and had specific questions related to that is fine. We'll also have a second part of this discussion, so that's up to you. If you want to frame it to the joint office now, that's fine. It's your call. I just wanted to be clear. There's a part 2 to this discussion.
Well, I asked it last week and I was unsatisfied perhaps with the answer. So I assumed in 1 week's time, maybe there was someone trying to formulate an answer, a plan that gives us a sense of urgency around something that hasn't happened in the 4 years I've been in office.
My understanding is that, and I think Director Field might be here, would know better than I do, but my understanding, Commissioner, is that that is part of the Built for Zero work, kind of that Deputy Director Anna Plum mentioned, hitting 20 of 29, I think, of the requirements for the Built for Zero criteria for their data strategy. Part of that will be requiring providers to kind of meet that quality data because they are the ones inputting that data, basically. So I imagine that will go in all of their contracts, but I can't speak specifically to the joint office contracting process right now. I can just say I would imagine that's part of the steps that will be required.
Okay, I guess, are we going to have people from joint office come up later, maybe?
We certainly can now or later. They weren't specific on the agenda, but they were good enough to come and over. So if you'd like to ask them questions, I'm comfortable making some space for that.
I guess I'm fine just putting it out there again, that remains one of my big concerns, is having this be a through line for me for the last 4 years and never being satisfied with any action towards that. And it just remains stairs and it's not working. We're just not doing it, I don't think. It's okay to say that. But part of the amendments that were in 2 years ago was to then have a through line that when you're a provider, you actually pick a couple parts of the continuum that you're going to focus on and that you're going to measure, and then you're going to be doing data work inputs so that we can actually start to track on where we are and where we're going. And until we have a system that operates with that type of integrity, it's really difficult to see how our investments are having any impact. And that's, I think, the frustration that I hear from most people that are in voters and most people that are connected to wanting to see our city move forward out of this crisis. I don't think anyone is disagreeing with that, but we're just really slow at seeing this type of integrity of discipline show up in the practices.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner. And I think I will relay that. And then I also think two of the items kind of that this council put forward are really important to some of that, which is the performance dashboard and kind of the budget dashboard, which I think are really helpful tools to kind of start to get some of that quality data. I think there's still a lot of work to be done, and I think we'll keep pushing for that. I'm also, like you mentioned, really proud of our city shelter dashboard and kind of all of our metrics and how we've incorporated data for all of that. So
I had to really stay on that. It was not something that the county cared about. Also, from when we first started this conversation, and it was in the summer, and then we said we'd come back on October 15th, and we had the meeting last week. We had a lot of dialogue about the inclusion of people who are want to be engaged with our steering committee that aren't a part of government, aren't a part of the provider network, that are actually independent voices that aren't receiving money, aren't on the hook to deliver the services, but are impacted and have insight. And I was told, I don't know now, three or 4 weeks ago, a month ago, that we were having trouble finding anyone. So I took it upon myself to recruit some people. It wasn't that hard to do, actually. And a couple people did fill out their applications. And there's been a real slowdown in appointing anyone. So I'd like to understand what that process is like. And if this was a joint office, it seems as though our opinions on this side of the aisle of the river would have some influence over that. And that's not my experience. And so what is your experience with the recruitment, and why do you think it's taking so long to get people like that at the table? What are we afraid of?
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner. So I will say for that process, the homelessness response staff, 3 members of that staff are leading that work, and they've incorporated me into a lot of that process. So I personally interviewed the 2 folks who applied. Thank you for your outreach. For the SHS taxpayer kind of position. The other position, and then we went through a series of questions, took notes, and then made recommendations to the mayor and the chair respectively. And it's for them to kind of decide who they want to put forward to be appointed by this body and then also by the county board. For the behavioral health position, the process for that it was stated that the county would put forward and kind of recommend someone. So they interviewed, I believe it was 2 people. I was not a part of that process, but I did receive kind of notes about that and the questions that were asked. And then recommendations were made by, I think, Sarah Morrissey, the mayor's chief of staff, to the mayor, and then the chair as well had, I think, probably some information that she shared with the mayor on kind of who she wanted to recommend based on behavioral health team member and then the homelessness response system team member who interviewed that individual. So that was that process, and it will be brought on the 30th, like I mentioned. I believe we are just waiting for the mayor and the chair to finalize that recommendation. So although staff work has been done, but now both the electeds need to decide who they are going to recommend respectively to the bodies.
Okay, and so we did have a meeting last Friday with the mayor, myself, and with the chair, and I think the chief of staff of each office, and it was fascinating to go through the dialogue together, and it was disheartening to hear that because I have doubt and have casted a vote to say that we could move forward with a way of working together that I think could be new and improved. That why would I have an opinion on who's at the table? And I just think that we have to be careful as elected officials to be professional and to really lean into inclusion and have some diversity of opinion at the table and be more welcoming to those that aren't a part of the actual industry and aren't actually a part of the system itself. We call it, you have to bust the bubble sometimes. It's kind of necessary to improve a system. And I think there's some fear that we've had for some time now with the county's culture of owning the homeless services. And so I hope we're on a better path now to know that we're all in this together and that we all want to move forward with better results and to have some more trust when we're trying to improve the system. And I'll end with this. Once again, I'll just put in the record that the fact that upwards of 75% of the people that are resisting services that are living on our streets are highly addicted to the drugs currently on our streets. And it continues to baffle me that we don't spend time having a plan on how we will address that and how this is not a part of the milestones and not seeing any data that says that we need to focus on that. Okay, I'll stop.
Okay, great.
Right.
I was just checking who
feel
was
some
next.
energy to the right of me.
Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to make sure I knew who was next. Commissioner Rubio.
Thanks. So Director Jordan and Sky, when you were talking about that sometimes there are some daily negotiations where things are kind of gray, can you talk a little bit more about what specific challenges or what things that we still need to figure out?
Yeah, I can start. So I think I'll give an example from this morning. This morning we were talking through kind of an outreach and referral process to one of the city shelter sites. So not to confuse people, but just to kind of show kind of the system that we're dealing with. One of the Safe Rest Villages, Multnomah Safe Rest Village, we send federal dollars that the city receives to the joint office for them to contract with a provider on that site. We recently paid, the city did, for an expansion of that site. So more pods, more lighting, more utility infrastructure. We did maintenance, that kind of thing. We own that site ourselves. But the determination of whose team or who will refer an individual from the street into that shelter is murky because the joint office holds the contract for the provider of that site. The city pays for that site to the joint office. And we have our own outreach team through the Street Services Coordination Center, as well as some other outreach partners. And we have a contractor, Transition Projects, that facilitates some of the joint city-county outreach strategies. So lovely woman named Shelley, who helps us every day determine what availability there is in different pods or different tiny homes on these different sites. and then makes a determination of, or for the shelter strategy, shelter set aside beds that are the congregate shelter beds, she makes that determination of like who called first and who has that prioritization from the outreach teams that are engaging with individuals on the ground. So clearly, a lot of different people that are trying to figure out how to get one human kind of into that site. What I will say is I think we do an incredible job despite the differences between the many governments. So you've got, as we've mentioned here, city, county, metro, you've got a lot of different people that are kind of dictating or telling us kind of the different ways that the money should flow or what should happen. And within that, I think on the ground, we are reconciling how to get individuals into those specific pods or units. But I think it is, like Director Jordan said, a constant negotiation, constantly on the phone, constantly determining what's the next best course and the next best step to really get that one individual. And we're dealing with human beings, so everything is going to be a little more nuanced and take a lot more work and energy. We also do a lot of, trash pickup and a lot of, needle removals and things like that. And it's much more cut and dry, I think, than the folks that we're trying to help who might be dealing with severe addiction issues or mental health issues or just various needs that they would have on the street and reasons that they are living unsheltered. And I think we deal with a lot of everyday difficulties that human beings are experiencing, and everyone needs to be handled in a particular way. So that leads to constant negotiation between different governments, different nonprofits, different providers, trying to figure out who can get where, who's paying for what, and how we kind of move forward to try to get someone to the next best step, whatever that might be.
Do you feel like this is a temporal issue? Like this is about figuring it out and braiding the systems? Or is it just this is what it is each and every time and you don't expect that to change?
It's a great question. I think a little bit of both. So I think I'm really proud of how far we've come from 3 years ago. I think I'm reminded every day how integrated we have become in a positive way. Relationships that have been built and processes that are happening. We'll have about 1,000 beds on the city side for shelter that didn't exist a few years ago. And so by the end of the year. So I think that's a really positive thing. I think we've built different systems. I think we've increased our technological capabilities. I think we've integrated kind of our data systems in a different way that has never happened before. And there's still a ton of work to do. And I also see that work that needs to be done every day as well. And so I think I'm constantly excited about how far we've come and looking forward to the future and appreciative of everyone who's put blood, sweat, and tears into a lot of this work and frustrated by the gaps that I see in the system and the lack of clarity for a lot of the pieces.
Thank you. Yeah. I just have one other question. And Commissioner Ryan, I appreciated your question about the contractor expectation. And I actually would love to hear from Director Field and Anna if they're available to just respond to that question and just to hear.
Bring them forward.
Commissioner Rubio, can you remind me of the question? It's been a long day.
You articulated it.
Yeah, I've been talking about it for 3 years. It's that amendment that says when we contract out with the providers, we need to have in the contract some accountability on what part of the continuum they're focused on, and give us at least 1-2 metrics that you're going to measure. And I think it's twofold. One, it really provides focus on our strategic plan. Sure. And then it also helps build the data integrity that we've been begging for the last 4 years.
All right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And we actually have said yes to this, and then we've sent it to the county, and nothing's happened with it. And it's not just this year; it started a couple years ago.
Yeah, and I just I appreciate you being here and listening, and I just wanted to give a chance to respond because we're talking about these programs and you're directly in them. So would love to hear your thoughts.
Once again, please introduce yourself to the.
I'm Dan Field, the Director of the Joint Office of Homeless Services. Thank you for the question. I'm going to defer it to our Deputy Director, Anna Plum.
Good afternoon, Anna Plum, Deputy Director of the Joint Office. So I'm going to answer what I think the question is, and if there was a lot of talk. I do want to confirm a couple things. Our providers' contracts do have outcomes in them. We do require and track outcomes for our providers. We also have data quality standards in our contracts. For example, you have to have data entered by a certain time frame. We also do regular data quality checks for our providers. So there are systems in place that require outcomes and data entry and data quality. I do want to note that we are also working on a project that I've mentioned before around making sure the outcomes that we're tracking align with the large metrics that we want to see in our community. And so that work is ongoing. We're doing a bunch of work to align, to sort of edit and align the contracts that we collect in the outcomes we collect in our contracts with what we track on our dashboards that we then report publicly. So that work is ongoing to make sure those are standardized across the different providers.
I appreciate listening to that. It's the first I've heard that answer, and I haven't seen anything in writing or had a chance to look at this before. So.
We can certainly follow up with more detail on that.
All right, that's just surprising.
Do you have further questions for these two? Anyone? Okay, thank you both.
Thanks.
Commissioner Ruby, do you have some further questions for staff on this? Commissioner Maps?
Your hand's still up. Commissioner Rubio.
I thank you.
Yep, sure. I have, before we move on to the broader questions, I did want to get back to one more milestone. Milestone 12, which basically says we'll reach an agreement on the number of housing vouchers to be set aside for residents of our task sites. I was the guy who got this milestone into the IGA, and frankly, I was doing it, I think, literally to try to help you, Sky, because I think I remember a moment in the not too distant past where we had folks in our safe rest villages. I think it was Clinton Triangle. Folks were ready to move on to supportive housing, but we couldn't move them on to supportive housing without housing vouchers, and the county is sort of the body that's in charge of housing vouchers. It was particularly problematic because you know, the theory behind our safe rest villages is that we could ask people to move from the sidewalks into a controlled, safe setting. What I think we found over the last couple of years is that once you move into those spaces, after a couple of months, you're ready to move on to a more structured housing situation. However, if there are no housing vouchers, the system that we have set up and works so well grinds to a halt. So we have to have throughput, and we have to have some way to connect these folks with actual housing. Otherwise, everything that Commissioner Ryan's done, everything that we frankly have done over the past 4 years fails. We turn a bridge to permitted housing into 500 kind of inadequate permitted housing beds, and that's not what I want. I'm not sure if I fully understand. So this strikes me as just being mission critical for the city of Portland. On the other hand, I think your response was, well, our sites will be included in a $2 million solicitation. Can you explain what that is? And I was also doing some of the back of the envelope math here. If we move, let's say, 3 cohorts of folks through our 555 beds in our houseless, in our Safe Rest Village network, I think that's going to cost pretty close to $2 million, if not a little bit more. So I'm wondering how all this pencils out and what the plan is, because it strikes me as being, we are very vulnerable here, it would appear to me, unless we get this sorted out.
Yeah, Commissioner, absolutely. So that $2 million solicitation is the start and what's currently in the budget. But yes, back of the napkin, I will say, based on how much kind of we've spent in the last year with one-time dollars from the state and the county on the rental assistance that went to folks at these different sites, that was really successful. I think that would probably pay for about maybe 80 placements. So it's definitely not sufficient. And I think the Joint Office is well aware of that. And so what we've been talking through is what other sources of funding, what other rental assistance opportunities are there. Last year, the governor in her executive order Porter, as well as the chair with Housing Multnomah Now, gave us one-time rental assistance dollars. We were able to get a lot of folks transitioned from the city shelter sites into housing, but there's not a system kind of in place right now for the folks in our shelter sites to get to housing. So I am lobbying heavily in different bodies where they actually have access to rental assistance dollars. So whether that's the state, whether that's Metro, whether that's the county, even the federal government in terms of some grant opportunities and HUD funding for any rental assistance dollars that we can try, as well as some creative options, frankly, on workforce development and connection to housing for folks who have low income, if they have SSI or some federal benefits, like if they could still pay for a unit that's, for example, $500 to $700 a month. So really looking at what all the possibilities on the table. I am particularly worried about this, and everyone, I think, and all these jurisdictions are well aware of it because I've been lobbying for it. But we will be lobbying state legislators. We will be putting in a joint ask with the Joint Office of Homeless Services, I believe, toward a legislative ask at the state. But yes, there's a deep need across all the shelter systems, but especially the adult shelter system, I think, just needs a lot more rental assistance dollars to get folks moved from shelter into housing. I also think it needs to be a deeper discussion, maybe at the Steering and Oversight Committee, the Implementation Committee, when they meet, of what do we want the system to look like? Prevention, as you've mentioned, is super important. Shelter is super important. And we also need housing dollars. And so there's only so much money. We're going to have to budget accordingly. We're going to have to make some hard choices. And we're going to have to make sure there's a flow through, that we can actually get somebody from the street stabilized into shelter or whatever they might need in terms of services, and then into housing. And I think that's a deeper discussion that needs to happen kind of at an elected level.
The county does have access to rental assistance dollars. Is that correct?
Yes, so they're allocated for specific things. So specific
But not
shelters.
not ours.
Not ours. We're like new to the table. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe here you said it's up to elected officials. Colleagues, I think, as we participate in this discussion and this system, it seems to me like it is a completely reasonable ask for the county to prioritize our clients in our Safe Rest Villages. Otherwise, if they don't prioritize that our whole system falls apart. It's also just human cruelty. I'm not sure why we send 20, if not more, $1 million a year over to the county to support the joint office. And in exchange, I'm not sure what we get. And all I'm asking here is an agreement for some vouchers for the souls who live in our Safe Rest Villages. And if we don't get those dollars, everything that we have built over the past 4 years will grind to a halt.
Sure. Commissioner Ryan? Having both of you up here, I want to ask this question. There was a budget note at last year's budget, so the budget that we're in 24-25, that was looking to track all the expenses that the city spends on homelessness that aren't as clear as a shelter, housing vouchers and such. And how's that coming along?
I may ask Ruth, who's tracking all of the budget notes that council passed last year. So I'll have her.
And if you don't have it at the tip of your tongue, I understand. And it'll be great to get it sooner than later, though.
Yeah, happy to give you an update. So for the record, my name is Ruth Levine. I'm the director of the city budget office. So yes, the budget note that was passed directed our office to work with the relevant bureaus in the city to pull together this data. We have, I would say, we had pulled together some of this data over the past couple of years, and it's been a matter of kind of refining it. Yeah. I think, there are some places where it's easier to track the expenditures than others, right? I'm happy to show you what we have right now. I have it here, but I think just to note, the work is not done, and I think what we need to do is kind of we need to bring this back to the leadership team and have a conversation around what are the sort of high priority data, what additional programs and things are missing from here that we want to track. So, I mean, just as an example, like police do not track every interaction they have with somebody on the streets, right? And it would be a huge undertaking to actually do that. Even to do like a short study would be a pretty big undertaking. There are other areas where we probably can track a little bit better than we do right now, and we could add that to our data set. But
I'm reminding myself and all of us, this came from leadership that told me many times when I first was elected in 2020 how much time and money they were spending addressing the crisis on our streets. And so I wanted to give them the opportunity to itemize that, monetize that, if you will. And perfection shouldn't get in the way of good here. It's just we're building something that's very relevant, and it's important as we, balance our budget. Thanks.
Yeah, okay.
But right now you don't have any. Don't go yet.
I have a
Don't you
slide
have something?
I have a slide I can show you. If
Oh, a
folks
slide. Okay, good.
Want to do that, but I actually don't have the Zoom link, so it might be hard to share my screen.
If you send it to council clerk,
Okay.
we can share it really quick.
While she's doing that, I'm just going to remind colleagues, I feel like we're almost done with part one of the discussion, which was to talk about the report itself. Then we're going to make some space to just check in with each of us on how we're feeling about the milestones in our own words, how we're feeling about the IGA, and we'll likely just go down the line. But we'll finish part one first.
Okay, I'm going to have, we have the President Gonzalez. I think I'm going to have some questions for staff about the larger endeavor that we're involved in here too. I've tried to keep my comments and questions so far limited to the report. I have some broader questions about what we're doing here.
Okay, that's fine. Then after Commissioner Ryan's done with this part, we'll go to you with those questions.
All right. Did we lose the plot?
Keelan,
I think we're, yes.
Oh, there we go.
So there's two slides here. So there's the first slide I'm showing you is the big number, and this is a version of a slide we put out in 2022. The City Budget Office put out in a report about housing and homelessness. So you can see, obviously, the big sort of blue is affordable multifamily housing. That includes stuff like Portland Housing Bond, right? So that is not really like true homelessness expenditure. It's just, this is where we started. So I wanted to show the big number and why it's so big. So if you go to the next slide, Keelan. This is the kind of updated version that breaks out different categories. And I can get you, Commissioner, the sort of detail that goes into all the programs within this of the different types of things we do. I'll note, like, if you look at emergency response, for example, the reason the actuals is bigger than the adopted, the blue is bigger than the orange, is because that includes fire does track the types of calls that are related to a homeless encampment or an individual. And so, but we collected that at the end of the fiscal year. So we don't, obviously they don't budget that as like a line item, but it's in the actual. So we have it for fiscal year 23-24.
Ruth, I might just clarify one piece for colleagues on that. From fire perspective, they're still staffing 31 fire stations no matter what. So we always have to be careful if that's incremental cost or essentially allocation of fixed costs. And particularly when you're talking about fire, some of the other public safety bureaus, it's not quite that straightforward, but.
Absolutely. I mean, much of this is not necessarily like marginal cost that you could pick up and move to something else. I think that would take more analysis to say, like, what of this could you redirect?
So orange is just the first quarter of this fiscal year?
No, it's the adopted budget. So it's just what we budgeted for.
It's not actuals budget.
It's not actuals, correct. So this is what we have at this time, and happy to provide the kind of line item detail of what went into this. But I'm continuing to work with staff and pulling together a group to kind of the next phase now that we have this updated, the next phase is to figure out kind of what's missing and what we would need to do to add any additional data that's more indirect, really. This should capture all of the direct expenditures on homelessness response, but it does not capture all of the indirect expenditures. And so that would be that would be the next.
That's the exercise I heard leadership wanting us to explore.
Yeah, it's just more challenging.
All right.
Could Commissioner Ryan, if I can just jump in here and ask for a quick clarifying set of comments. I'm struck by the spending patterns I see in emergency response. What does emergency response? What is emergency response in this context, and how did we go from 25 million and 23-24 to 7 million?
Yeah, so that's what I was saying. It just doesn't include, so what's in here is, so the reason it's going down is not, it's just because in the actuals, we've included the estimate for fire, which is $19 million in fiscal year 23-24, but we don't budget within fire. They don't budget for how much of their time is going to be spent responding to homelessness. It's just in the actuals. It's not in the budget. So that $20 million just isn't, there's no equivalent for that in 24-25. That's why it's going down. Does that make sense?
Just to clarify, it's essentially an allocation exercise at the end of the year. They review the call volume for the fire department, and they allocate based on how those calls are logged. But that's why we have to be careful with this, because it's not, if we got rid of homelessness tomorrow, you're still spending that same amount of money. It's just the way it gets allocated right now.
Great. And President Gonzalez, you're probably most familiar with these numbers, although Ruth too. What are the real world trends looking backwards in terms of spending? Like, so if last year for emergency response, we spent 26 million, if we went back 2 years, would it be 21 million, or does it just bounce?
I'd have to think about that a little bit. I think it's been fairly stable, but again, what's important to note here is that this is an allocation exercise, and so I think you have it's for both fire and police. You know, we have some structural budget deficits there that you got to address no matter what. So this is we have data on where people are going on fire calls, and that's what informs this. But I think you're spending the same amount of money no matter what, outside of maybe chat and PSR. You know, those are your incremental expenditures inside the public safety bureaus.
Got it.
And
Thank you.
And that's, sorry, just to add, the PSR is one of the other kind of main component in that bucket.
Okay.
Thank you. It's very helpful. It's just helpful to see the cleanup services, as we call it here, just how high that number is. So even before we send money over, we're spending at least that much internally at the city. So I think sometimes it's important just to be transparent about the expense of dealing with this humanitarian crisis at the city. Okay, thanks.
The other thing to just note about this is these are not annual numbers. A lot of this is one-time dollars, and it includes American Rescue Plan. It includes all different sources. So it's a complicated set of sources that we use to pay for all of these things. I mean, some of it is Oregon All In, and there's SHS money in here. So this is not all just straight up city general fund, and it is not an ongoing figure. So that's a
Thank you for saying that. I think it would be helpful if there's a way to track what comes from SHS, because that's money that is still out there and money that won't come to us any longer, which was from the ARPA money. Yeah, so those sources are obviously really significant for this dialogue. Thanks.
And if I may, kind of on the same, along the same lines, so for the coming years, funding for safe rest villages, do we pay for that out of the general fund or one-time money? Is that ARPA money?
Yeah, it's a mix.
It's a mix. So some of, like Commissioner Ryan mentioned, so it's some ARPA funds, it's some SHS funds. So the county has last year sent over, I think, $22 million in SHS funds for development and operational costs for city shelters. I believe there's a little bit of city general fund in there, but it's mostly outside sources. There's also about $7 million, I believe, Shannon can correct me, in state money. So that came for operations for Clinton Triangle.
Do you have a sense of how much ARPA money is in the mix specifically for safe rest villages for the next fiscal year?
It will only probably be if it's allocated. So it ends the end of this calendar year, but because we've allocated it, or you could speak to this, I think if there might be a potential to use it and expend it later throughout next year for some of the shelter operations, but not much, basically. We're getting to the end of, obviously, ARPA.
Yeah. It's transitioning to the SHS funds.
Yes.
Is that the plan? Do we have an agreement on?
So that's in the IGA. And so that was a major negotiating point in terms of what the costs would be going forward and who would pay for that. And the county has agreed in the IGA to pay for the operations of the city shelter site starting July 1st of next year. We still have some negotiations that have to occur in terms of transferring that. That was part of that process, was the transfer of those shelter sites.
So actually, I'm glad this is one of the things I wanted to touch on in the final piece of today's conversation, which is the future management of the Safe Rest Villages. And the argument, or part of the argument that the mayor made to this council, is that we need to partner with the county, partly so we can hand off the Safe Rest Villages to the county, because frankly, we don't have the money to pay for them in the long run. I think one of the other things that we've heard through these reports is the county is not prepared to take over management of these sites. I think I've heard that from both the county side, and I've heard that concern on the city side too. So if we're not prepared to, if the county is not prepared to take over the management of these Safe Rest Villages, would they still send over dollars to fund them?
Again, I think that is exactly the question that will be part of that discussion and negotiation. I can speak to the letter of the IGA, which says on July 1st, we will transfer and they will pay for it. I think operationally and logistically, that is probably not possible to fully, and I mentioned this last week, to fully hand over all of the shelters at that moment. I think we can have a plan in place for kind of that gradual transition. And I think we still expect that they will be paying for operations on July 1st of next year.
Okay, so there are two different pieces. There's the management piece, and I think there's a growing but quiet consensus that the county is probably not going to take over the management of the Safe Rest Villages, although that could be wrong. But I do want to be very clear on the second piece, the money transfer to support the villages moving forward. Can you just repeat for me what your understanding of whose budget are the, according to the IGA that's currently on the table, moving forward, who's going to pay for the Safe Rest Villages? Does that come out of the city or does that come out of the county?
The county. So that would be, my guess would be SHS funds, but it would be any funds the county wishes to send over starting next fiscal year, which would start July 1st. I will also mention that we are lobbying jointly at the state legislature for additional funds for operations. So that would be in addition and might offset some of those costs.
Do we still have the county folks in the room?
I don't know.
Can I just, for the record, remind us that the source is actually the taxpayers?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that money, again, is stewarded at the Metro.
Yes.
Yeah. And so if we're getting results, that's the place you would go.
I think we got Dan Field coming up here, and hey, Dan, I appreciate you being here today, and as always, I appreciate your partnership in this very challenging space. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of short and medium-term funding for the Safe Rest Villages. What's your understanding of who pays for these starting July 1?
That'll come from the county under the IGA. And I want to expand the question a little bit. This year, this has been either misrepresented or not accurately portrayed up until now. So I want to just clarify. The task sites have also been funded this year through those SHS dollars coming through the county. And that was an arrangement I think you're all aware of that the county chair and the mayor negotiated a year ago. I think that's been largely successful. We also negotiated an extension of those funds due to an extension of the task site. But from my perspective, as the first task site is up and running, the second task site and the third task site are in a great positioned to be up and running soon. That collaboration is working extremely well, and that funding is happening this year. The funding for the SRVs, as Sky mentioned, is teed up for next year. And all of that would have to come back on the table if the city withdraws from the IGA.
Thank you.
Dan, while you're there, it's good to see you. The Arbor Lodge shelter, that's been finished, and I know people in my neighborhood are asking about it. How's the permitting coming? I know that we are waiting for the county to actually ask for permits.
I want to be clear, that was that might have been portrayed in the media as a permitting issue, and it was never a conflict between the county and the city. We weren't waiting on the city necessarily. We did a grand opening earlier in the summer. I think many of us were there. It was great. Our mistake was that we knew there would be a length of time between that grand opening and the actual opening. So from our point of view, the project has proceeded apace. There have been some normal construction delays, and any delays in opening were not related to city permitting.
And that would be a good example to study as a case study on roles and responsibilities. I've often heard that, and it's true, that the counties, the providers of the county handle everything inside the building for services and out in the area where there's the pods, but out the sidewalks and such, the public right away is a city, but the city can't read anyone's mind, so we just need the people that are the providers to communicate and collaborate so that the city can respond if there's issues out on the sidewalk. So as we move forward, no matter what our formal agreement is, we can always work together as public servants to know our roles and responsibilities. That's a great example of that.
Anything else for Director Field right now?
It might be a good idea to have, if Mr. Field is willing to stay at the table, if we're going to switch over to a broader conversation of where we're going, I might want to refer a couple of questions. In fact, I will want to refer a couple of questions to staff, and Dan might be a helpful resource too.
So I'm going to just take a quick check-in with all of you then. We're approaching the 2-hour mark, which time we'll have to take a break. So we can power right up until that time, take a short recess, and then come back. I just also want to be mindful of your all's time. So just wanted to acknowledge the time, but if we can expand any questions to staff to any topic related to the report, milestones, or the IGA, ask away, and then we'll turn it over to some final reflections. So I'm expanding it, trying to expand the scope. If there was other things you wanted to ask staff, let's go ahead and do it now.
Got it. Well, this is probably a conversation. Let me ask city staff. When I can remember both meeting with the mayor in private and hearing the mayor make the argument for the current IGA with the joint office in this chamber. And I remember the mayor making two fundamental arguments. One is we should join in this IGA because it will, although we're a junior partner, if you take a look at the economics here, I think the city's contributions, the city's 20 some odd million dollars that we send over to the joint office represents maybe about 10% of their budget, something along those lines. But if we were all part of a shared steering committee, we would have influence over this much larger pie. So that was one of the promises that was there. And then the second promise that I heard the mayor make was, listen, we can't really afford to run these safe rest villages. We can stand them up with one-time dollars, but long-term, we need to find a home for them. And now, you know, a couple of months after that, I find that both of those promises are kind of broken to some degree. So there's the promise of leveraging dollars, and I think that, you know, I take a look at the debates that we're currently having about whether or not the steering committee is a policy-making committee or an advisory committee. You know, we hear different things from the city and the county, but one of the things that I think I hear pretty clearly from my partners over at the county is that this is fundamentally an advisory board. You know, I could also recall, I think a week ago last Monday, being over at the county for our shared session, and I heard I think multiple members of the county commission say, hey, this agreement does not mean that we give up control of our budget. And frankly, I don't blame them one bit for this. So help me think about if one of the primary arguments for signing up to this IGA is that we'd have this economic and policy influence. I'm not sure if I'm seeing that. Am I getting something wrong there?
No, Commissioner, I think it's an avenue to have those tough discussions, and I think what the mayor's mentioned before is it's an opportunity we haven't had in the past. So it's a new opportunity to discuss those really hard issues that I think we either avoid or have kind of in one-on-one meetings, but this is a public space, public meeting, and we'll have stakeholders and experts in that space to help folks make a recommendation. I do think it's difficult to have a body that has those discussions then make a recommendation to two different governing structures. And it kind of goes back to our discussion on charters. There are roles and responsibilities. We pick up the trash. We have transportation. The county has health and human services. And so there are responsibilities that we have to the voters and you all have to the voters about specific issues. But I think this is one where, as we've talked about, it's quite intertwined. So I think the Steering and Oversight Committee, in my mind, and I can defer to these two who would know kind of from past experiences with similar functions, is one of the few opportunities we have to really engage in that kind of messy process of homeless services and discuss those different pieces. I think we just saw a clear example of all the things the city is doing that is either directly or tangentially kind of related to homeless services. We see a county budget that definitely is spending a lot of money on different health and human services related to homelessness. It's important, I think, for both bodies to acknowledge those pieces, discuss them, have those hard conversations, and make recommendations. They can't dictate what either governing body is going to do, but they can say, hey, we took the time, we looked deeply under the hood, and we think this is the best course of action to our respective governing bodies. It's not perfect, but I think it's what we have to have those discussions. I think that's kind of what the mayor was alluding to. It keeps us in the conversation. It keeps us at the table. I think one thing that is a misnomer and feels easy is getting out of kind of a messy relationship. But I think we are in it together no matter what. And I see that every single day. We are responsible for different things. We have different access to funding. And it's important that we work together in the best way possible. And I think the Steering and Oversight Committee is the attempt to have those conversations and work together at a deep level. It's a work in progress, and I think we keep having to evolve. But again, like I mentioned, from 3 years ago when I think, and Commissioner Ryan can speak better to this than I can, there were definitely no conversations happening in terms of kind of work that needed to happen and that was already integrated, but we weren't even discussing it. So I think this is a new opportunity to do so. It's up to all of you whether you want us to stay in that conversation, but I think that was the attempt that was being made.
Does the IGA, is it possible to have these conversations outside the context of the IGA in its current form? I don't see a world where we don't talk to our county partners here, but one of the things that kind of disturbs me about the current setup of our agreement is the fact that we, come together at a table because we need to talk, except we can't talk about our respective responsibilities. Like which lane the city is in and which lane the county's in. It's almost like being at a dysfunctional family dinner. And I can see Mike sitting up. Do you want to respond to that? Maybe I'm looking at things wrong.
No, I think you're looking at it pretty well. It is a dysfunctional table. It's more functional than the one we had 2 years ago. And it's way more functional than no table at all 4 years ago. And so it's work in progress.
Well,
we have different missions. We have different philosophical standings on different elements of this problem that we all face. The only thing I know for sure is that whether you're in the IG or out of the IG, you can't escape the county. We are in this thing together. We do different elements that are absolutely critical path pieces to success. And I think we're learning to deal with each other better. I think the people who are doing this stuff on the ground are learning faster than the rest of us because they have to if they're going to get anything done. And so it's a work in progress. It's not way not perfect. And I think to your last point about the SOC table and even other tables that we're at, I think you need to poke at this issue of we can't talk about that. And I think we need to poke each other pretty hard sometimes about we won't talk about our authority. Your authority is what you do with it, okay? You guys have incredible authority. The county commission has incredible authority to do things. And so what does it mean? What does that mean that we can't talk about that? Because it's variable. It's not written on a tablet someplace. It's what you make of it. And it's what the county commission makes of it. And so while it's ugly and painful and expensive, I'm trying to think of what's better right now. That's all.
Thanks, Mike. I'll be quiet for a second.
It's, you know, I think there may be an opportunity for after this meeting to ask further questions of staff.
So it might suggest to my colleagues that we just create space after this meeting for follow-up questions. Having said all that, it would be valuable, I think, to respect the language of the original ordinance and take folks' temperature on what they're feeling about the IGA, the milestones. It's not a formal vote. There is no formal vote today. So if that's okay, colleagues, absent a significant question for staff, we could transition now just to take a temperature of where we are on it. Does that sound okay to you all?
Sure.
Commissioner Maps, if it's okay, I guess I'll start with you and we'll just work down the line. How are you feeling about the IGA, our involvement in it, and the satisfaction of the milestones articulated in the July ordinance?
Well, I think I've laid my cards pretty clearly on the table today. You know, I want to be clear. The city and the county have to work together to solve our houselessness problem. However, I think we're on very different pages. I talked about the fact that the city is very much engaged with the realities that we see on the street. I think the county is trying to solve for a different problem, perhaps preventing people from sliding into houselessness. That's kind of a worthy goal and something we should certainly lean into. However, I feel like we are ceding an awful lot of our authority and a lot of our focus, frankly, in the current IGA. I want to continue to work with the county. However, I think that the model we have on the table is flawed. You know, we had two promises from the mayor. By participating in this, we would get leverage over the county's joint office budget. We clearly don't have that. The other promise here is, well, if we participate in this, we can hand over the management of our Safe Rest Villages. We don't have that. I think that it's time to hit the reset button in this relationship. I want to work with the county, but I'll tell you, our North Star as a council has to be on trying to reduce the absolute number of people who sleep on our streets every night. And frankly, I think it's quite clear that the county is trying to solve a different problem. And the current IGA is not helping us move forward with our fundamental challenge. And so I would like to do a reboot of this agreement. I'd like to frankly direct the city administrator and our city attorneys to figure out a plan forward. You know, The reason why we're having this circuit breaker conversation today is to see if we want to continue down this route. I don't. I think we must do better. I'd like to take a look at how we go about reorganizing and refocusing our partnership with the county. And our North Star should be to reduce the absolute number of people who sleep on our streets every night.
Okay, thank you. And colleagues, I hate to interrupt the flow, but we are over 2 hours. And to give folks a little bit of rest, is it okay if we, I'm going to recess us for 5 minutes and then we'll turn it over to you, Commissioner Rubio. Does that work? 5 minutes? All right. We're in recess until 5:10. Commissioner Rubio, you have any thoughts you'd like to share with the group?
Maybe just some brief ones. Just a general comment first about the milestones. It's clear there's a fundamental difference between what the council adopted in our ordinance and what the county adopted via resolution. We didn't address or resolve it this summer, so clearly that's coming up right now and today. And I think that conflict is a really good example of how we struggle at times to be 100% aligned, even as we're marching in the same direction. But as Sky and Director Jordan talked about, this new approach to me is a reset. It is a work in progress, and it's about taking our authority in those conversations and putting the hard questions on the table. So for me, I feel like we still do need to see this through. We still need each other. We're always going to be intertwined. So for me, the idea of the IGA helps us, give us a table and gives us the parameters to have that conversation. So that's where I am right now.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Ryan?
Yeah, well, I was at that table that supposedly existed 4 years ago, and it just was frustrating because there wasn't a lot of respect or agency given to our seat at that table. I can see very slowly that there's definitely been an improved reset, but it's going so slow. And so the truth is we have to collaborate on so many issues with the county because that's just how it's set up. And so, of course, we're going to keep collaborating, but financial swaps with no substance, it's just time to move forward. There's just no reason to keep this non-joint office limping along with these type of conversations. We should be focusing on action and results and our mutual responsibilities to get that going along. And just remember that this is a taxpayer's money, and they asked us to provide services and move people off the streets and into shelter and into housing. That's it. It's not the county's money. It's not Metro's money. It's the taxpayer's investment. And we're not functioning well for now, 4 years when it comes to that charge. So I've been patient. I've been persistent. And I'm ready to move forward in a different type of reset. So I have zero desire to continue in the relationship that we currently have.
Okay.
Because it's not a joint office.
I guess I have some comments here. So I think we're at a point where responsible leadership requires saying this arrangement isn't working while continuing to protect the parts of the system that are working well. And I say that with deep appreciation for some really difficult conversations that I've engaged with in the county over the last 90 plus days on the steering committee. Deeply appreciative of staff at the joint office, the county and the city working very hard to work together. And those efforts are very much appreciated. But I would think we have to acknowledge some components. As the city has worked to comply with the terms of its ADA lawsuit, settlement, we have sought repeatedly to address the community impacts of both unsanctioned camping and unmanaged shelters in very specific, focused ways with our partners at the county. On distribution of tents, tarps, and needles, on the management of service providers, and on how public safety and livability is protected around managed shelters, it is appropriate to have a conversation about the city's commitment to this important work done in homelessness and what role the city should have at that really street level, both in terms of providing shelters, providing outreach, and how do we protect community from unmanaged shelters and unsanctioned camping. An issue in my mind are how safe rest villages and task sites really represent an evolution and improvement in our sheltering approach. It is a positive step forward from congregate shelter. We combine services with shelter in looking at the whole need of those on our streets. This is a successful model that the city has piloted, and I want to acknowledge that Joint Office has supported us at different stages in that process, but that has been a city-led, city-tested, and city-proven model that we need to protect in our community. So we need to, how do we protect that? I have every confidence in our ability to work productively with our county partners But without important and meaningful answers to the impacts of current policies on our small businesses, neighborhoods, and public right-of-ways, and without addressing very real concerns over the viability of a responsible handoff of successful run shelter sites to the county, we cannot simply push forward with things as they are. Things must change, and I believe we should have a serious conversation as a council about what the future of this partnership looks like in terms that meet both the needs of those struggling on the street, as well as residents who want to live in a healthy, safe, and vibrant city. I will say the Steering and Oversight Committee has provided an important forum to speak on some of these critical issues. I think in whatever comes next, we need to preserve that platform. I'll let staff and others involved in the process speak to the other committees that have been set up. The Steering Committee has some value. It's just not solving all of the problems we were hoping for in the time frame we were looking for. While it's clear that things must change, our path forward should build on the best of what's already there while working to address our challenges in no uncertain terms. With that, I'm going to ask City Attorney Taylor to come forward. So I want to preempt this by saying I think it is appropriate to create space for constructive dialogue as to what a future IGA would look like with Multnomah County. But given the sentiment communicated by a majority of council today, Robert, could you prepare an ordinance terminating the IGA for council's consideration?
Yes.
Commissioner Mapps, Commissioner Rubio, Commissioner Mapps, Commissioner Ryan, would either of you be interested in co-sponsoring that?
Yes, it'll obviously, I want to see the substance of the ordinance, obviously. And I also want to make it clear, as I have several times today, there's no path forward on houselessness without a partnership with the county. However, our current partnership is not focused on the primary goal that this council needs to focus on, and that goal is reducing the absolute number of people who sleep on our streets every night. So I do believe it is time to hit the reset button in our relationship with the county. And in order to get from here to there, if that means terminating the current IGA and opening up a new one, I would very much appreciate the city attorney's assistance in moving in that direction.
Commissioner Ryan?
Yes.
Okay. With that direction, anything?
Commissioner Rubio.
You're certainly welcomed.
I'm sorry.
I just wanted, I stumbled at just based on who had communicated what in the comments.
This is all new to me, so I have not had any discussion about it, so I don't.
That's
feel
fine.
ready.
I didn't mean to put you on the. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
I apologize.
I stumbled the word. So, with that direction, is there anything further from you all at this point? Keelan, is there anything else that we need to do in terms? We're not voting on this report. So, for disposition, anything further required of this council?
I have a quick question for Robert before we go. How long is it going to take you to pull something together? I recognize that this is either simple or it's tricky, and I'm not sure which one.
I can have a draft for you to review this week, and then we can try to get it on the council agenda as soon as possible. I do want to note two things.
Sure.
The first is, under the current IGA, we have to give 90 days notice before the termination date, so we have to follow those procedures. And then also the IGA contemplates, once there's the termination, there is a wind down process. And so I think that if it's the sense of council, we could follow the notification and wind down provisions to terminate the existing IGA. And I think that would give an opportunity for the city to decide what kind of relationship they want with the county going forward.
Great.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
With that, we are adjourned.